All right, what's up, friends? Welcome back to another live episode here on the on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, in your Twitter feed, and then of course over on Facebook. We're going to record a live episode right now. So excited to have everybody here. As always with the live episodes, I'll be able to see your comments coming through. So feel free to comment in any of the chats. We'll be kind of having a conversation. Of course, this will be put out on the podcast. And this one will be episode 238. So it'll be tomorrow. So I'm going to kick in the intro real quick, and then we are going to get started. Let's do it. What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. And of course, we are powered and sponsored by the Crypto Business Conference. Crypto Business Conference is happening in San Diego, October 9th to the 11th. Make sure you check out socialmediaexaminer.com/NFT365 so you can check out that event. Hopefully, I will see you in San Diego come October. Now, with the podcast, one of the beauties of the podcast and something that I take, a lot of pride in is that, really focused on our ability to, do what I put into my yearbook in my high school yearbook, my senior year, way back in 1999. I said, like, my goal or the thing that I would strive to do in life was connect good people. Well, I said great people with great people to do great shit. That's what I put in my yearbook back in 1999. And that, to me, is ultimately what the power of Web3 is enabling for us, and ultimately allowing us to do things in ways that we really never could have imagined before. And in some cases, at a speed that we've never done before. And so I'm excited to have, I'm going to bring on our today's guest, and Molly is joining us. Molly, thanks so much for joining the podcast. Molly Dickson we have the Computer Cowgirls, and we're going to talk a little bit about that project and another project you have working as well. But Molly, just to kick us off, tell the audience a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and then I have some questions for you.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much for having me. I've been on a little podcast, I feel like, to where I'm getting better at it, but my partner is usually the one that's she's more put together. I'm the artist and founder, so I think that goes to the territory maybe that I'm the scattered partner. Anyway, my name is Molly Dickson. I am a fashion photographer based in Texas, and I also do kind of collage motion graphic work. That's about half my day job workload right now. And then the last since February, really, I kind of jumped into Web3 with Computer Cowgirls, which was, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I'm kind of an accidental NFT artist in that way, I guess.
Tell me a little bit more. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that accidental art, because like from the artist side, and I'll tell you, like, it's part of the beauty for me here is I get to kind of pull the artists into, telling the story and sharing all the promotional side, which I know is not always the artist's favorite thing to do. But yeah, how did you become the NFT artist?
Well, people kept mentioning NFTs to me, and I, like everybody, the first time you hear it, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, I looked into it. I didn't get it. And then another year went by, and a friend called me, and she kind of explained how the collectibles, these 10K collectible collections, were working. And she also explained that a good percentage of them, especially women-led projects, they donate a percentage to certain causes. And so I had a little bit more time to kind of wrap my head around the why, which I think is always the biggest hurdle jumping into the space, is like, why do people care about these? Why do people want these? Why are people making these? And that kind of like allowed me some time to like let that sit for a second. And then I had a little bit of time. Texas, we had passed SB 8, which was the most restrictive abortion ban. And so I decided I would just make a very small Genesis collection of 201 animated cowgirls that I named Computer Cowgirls, because why not? They're cowgirls on a computer. And it would just be all in, to raise money for abortion access in Texas. And I just thought it was kind of funny in a way that they're cowgirls. And I just, we all hate Abbott here. So it was just kind of my jump into the space. Of course, between the time where I had that conversation about collectibles to the time I made the collection, I wouldn't say I did any research. So I just kind of jumped in, didn't know what I didn't know, which for me is probably better in some ways. I think accidentally I did a few things right in hindsight, but really found my partner, Madison, very early on, before the first launch, even in our first drop. And she's been kind of with me every step of the way. Yeah.
Nice. So, and so you mentioning that you were attracted to the idea of like cause and like the donation side. Did the idea of kind of like the artist, the creator percentage that you could build in, because we've interviewed a lot of artists, and I think it's interesting to see the entry point for a lot of artists, like that idea of like the cause based one. I think that's kind of what jumped out at you the most.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't say we donate we call it the 201 Originals now, because Computer Cowgirls has kind of grown into a larger idea than the Genesis collection. But I think donating 100% of primary and secondary sales, I can think about that project and I can make decisions around that project differently than if it was a personal thing for me. A lot of decisions that really led the way, even like what chain I was going to be on, figuring all that out, it really drove home because I knew exactly where it was going, what it was for. And for me, that's an easier model to deal with. So yeah, we have a similar thing with the Fuck You collection.
So I'm curious, like, because you were actually already on this cause before I would say it kind of took over a lot of people's feeds, especially our NFT community feeds. You had already launched a collection, and I think so that was focused mostly on Texas, right? On kind of driving change in Texas. When you got kind of like the initial wave, or I guess it was the memo that was leaked that kind of like gave us all this like, wait a second, there's the possibility of this being overturned or being removed. Did you immediately think like, hey, how can we take this bigger? Like, what was your initial thoughts? Because I mean, you were already laying the groundwork before even any of that was kind of exposed to us in the public.
Yeah, well, I have to say, when I launched the original collection, I had no expectations for how it would do. It was very small. I thought it will sell out eventually. It could take me months. I had no reputation in the space. Any artist, any commercial artist starts over in Web3. No one knows who they are unless you're just a huge, huge name, which I'm not. But they sold out instantly, and we raised 11 ETH, which was $30,000 for Fun Texas Choice. And so it was pretty impressive to me to see the amount of money I could raise in this space versus like selling prints. Obviously digital like animation work wouldn't sell. It'd be a hard sell without it being an NFT. But so I was kind of really impressed by that model. Last year I listened to the Supreme Court hearing, and anyone that worked in this field, like in the abortion rights access field, they knew this was coming. And if you didn't know, for a long time it's been coming. I think, like, I remember listening to NPR last summer, and they said next summer this will be overturned most likely. So I stayed on Texas because when SB8 passed, we were a very small project. We were 201 cowgirls, and you raise $30,000 for Texas, and it's not like you like fixed abortion in Texas, like leave or whatever. But when the leak came out, we had planned to launch COWGIRLDAO probably about a month after the leak came out, without knowing at that time what was going to happen. And we had kind of a plan to do, I would create one-of-ones, we would auction those off, we would slowly start funding COWGIRLDAO, which is still going to be Texas-based. Once the leak happened, our team met really quickly. Our collector base is ideologically aligned 100%, so it was really easy to know, like to jump and say we're going to do a bigger effort. And people that were aware of our project just kept tagging us because everyone was like, who is doing anything for this cause? And we had already been working on it since February. So we went ahead and we launched a 10,000 asset collection, but they are 3 editions, so 3 pieces of art, 3 price points. We really kind of all hands on deck. We launched COWGIRLDAO early. asked everyone in our community for help, who is PR, who can copyright, who can, help with all these different things, who has DAO experience, who has nonprofit experience. And really, I think I'd have to look at the exact timeline. I think we were ready in like 10 days, maybe a little bit more than that, but as quickly as possible. Yeah, and so when the official overturn happened, of course, we were still minting the 10kFU collection. So we, right again, the cycle picks up and people say, who's doing something for this? And we were. So we've been raising money. We donated $27,000 to Oklahoma. That was between the leak and overturn, because Oklahoma in between that time passed the most restrictive ban. So we were like, our first fuck you is all in on Oklahoma. And we think we'll be kind of reactive that way, like where we can just, there's some flexibility about how we decide we want to like strategize and shift depending on the landscape and how things kind of change. Of course, now it's like dumpster fire, everything is going to happen at once. But yeah, and in total, I think the Fuck You collections raised 26 ETH, a little over 26 ETH so far, and still more to go. But yeah.
So I'm curious. I want to jump into that collection, but you mentioned you weren't sure how it was going to sell when it first you first launched the original Genesis and it sold out right away. Is there anything that you think you did that kind of led into that? Was it the fact that it was a unique not only a unique collection, but unique in the sense of how you were kind of hyper focused in Texas? I think a lot of projects that end up being regional based end up struggling a lot more than others. Is there anything that you could really kind of put a finger on what you think was that initial success that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely worried it might be too local of an issue, and it didn't prove to be. Of course, it wasn't a giant collection that I had to sell, but I think being a little naive coming into this space, not being swayed by the art that was already in this space, I just kind of did my thing, and the art looked really different. They were motion pieces. They weren't a PFP collection. They're collage style, photo based. They're loud. They're a little tacky.
I like loud, bright, loud. That jumps out at me. I'm curious. You mentioned the art kind of background leading in. If you were thinking of this from this kind of kind of activating a collection and then kind of donating to a cause, what would be the time frame that would have taken you kind of non NFT world? Do you have a idea of what that would have kind of taken to kind of bring to life something similar, but not on in the Web3 space?
My collection wasn't generative, so it was all handmade. I don't know if on that back end, if there would have been a time difference. I just don't think it would have had traction on the front, selling nearly as quickly. I mean, we were able to donate really quickly. And I think for a lot of causes, the speed you can raise money and the speed you can donate is the most important thing you can really focus on, just because so many causes are time sensitive that way. I mean, even now we have kind of a 20, it was like a 30-day plan before we start seeing major changes in states that are trigger states. So we kind of have just as quick as possible in this first month, and then we'll kind of reset and see what we need to do after that. But I think for most people, I think being able to find community that is outside of your local area, or your friends, people that means people all over the world really, and you can raise funds quicker than you could.
Yeah, I'm curious from a standpoint of as you were looking at these collections, you mentioned the DAO was kind of put into action, multiple 10K pieces, and you kind of started off by you kind of didn't know what you didn't know, and you kind of jumped into the space. Well, those are those not only launching multiple collections, but also operating a DAO. I mean, a lot of projects haven't even thought down that road. What were some of the things that kind of allowed you to kind of adapt and innovate at really a pretty impressive speed?
Yeah, I mean, I think COWGIRLDAO is still a baby DAO. I mean, every time we have a voting mechanism, we're trying to figure out the most efficient way for this system to run. Personally, as an artist, I love the idea. When I was heard about a DAO, what a DAO was, I like the idea Like, I just want to be able to make the gifts. I'm not an expert in these fields. I think bringing people in with different background experience, you know, like we have people that work in the legal field, people that work in nonprofit. I just think bringing in like a group of people with different backgrounds, different thoughts, that we can better make a decision of how we want to spend this money. And that's really what the DAO does. The DAO really decides, how do we want to kind of arrange voting structure? What kind of thresholds do we need as far as like, you know, of course, like any crypto conversions, we've sort of sat there and been like, man, if we train, because it transfers to USD, so it's like, gets like, you know, you could be up or down a couple $100, you know, depending on the day. So it's like things like that. I think being able to have people that are in the space and make decisions as a community, and be part of the community that grows, you know, that raises the funds and also helps spend the money. I think that that's really cool, because like, I don't think I'm necessarily the best person to be like, this is what we're going to do every time, you know? So.
Well, and I think that's I mean, you said baby DAO. I think most DAOs are still figuring out how to make all this process work. We were on a Twitter space last night with a couple of people that are behind some really massive DAOs. And I can tell you, I pushed them on some questions and they were still figuring out like a lot of the, you know, the nuances. I'm curious, you know, you mentioned, you know, like, you know, the art, right? So you're the 10K Fuck You collection is, you know, three different, if I remember correctly, three different types of pieces. You know, what inspired you to do it kind of like that kind of structure? You know, we know generative, we know kind of one of one. I kind of like as soon as when I first, you know, jumped on the site, I was like, wow, I like the idea, you know, different pieces for, you know, different amount of people that are donating. What was kind of the inspiration for that?
Well, in the time frame, we obviously couldn't have done like a generative 10K collection, at least not the way I work. I wouldn't have been, I mean, I think I'm fast, but I'm not fast. So I think that automatically meant that we'd be doing, you know, single editions of some kind. I like, it was actually our dev, Audrey, who's a Texas woman as well. And it was her idea to kind of launch this 10K. And I think we've seen this before, you know, like Ukraine DAO launched the simple flag and they raised a ton of money. So that's a little bit of proof of concept that you can raise money without, you know, a million individual pieces of art. I like the tier system because our low tier is 0.03, which it is a lot more accessible if anyone wants to try to, you know, have a piece of like, I guess, you know, it's like Web3 resistance art of some kind. I mean, we've made it for this. It's pretty like middle finger, I guess. But yeah, I like having the 3 tiers, and obviously there's more of the bottom tier. There's 6,000 and then 3,000 and 1,000 of the top.
So yeah, and we minted one for our Mint 365 collection, and you know, for, you know, it's nice to kind of be able to add, you know, collections that not only are doing things differently but are making kind of like that social impact as well. I'm curious, you know, like one of the things, you know, my team knows that as soon as we kind of heard, you know, I'm a big believer in, you know, Web 2, we did a lot of waiting around, hopefully letting others kind of take the lead, and for everything from donation to impact to movements. And I believe in Web3, a lot of it is like activating. Like, how can we, as Web3, you know, users, advocates, evangelists, you know, activate some of these things? So I know for people that are listening, you know, the idea of kind of taking, you know, you already had kind of the jump start with, you were already on that cause-based, you know, in Texas side. What would be some of like your advice or maybe, you know, thoughts that you've had on, you know, projects that are cause-based? You know, some of them have been successful, some of them have not, because I think there's a little bit of disconnect in the language. What would be some of the things that you've learned kind of bringing like a project not only early to light, but also bringing another project to light, you know, in, you know, kind of in the midst of a lot of the heavy conversation that's happening?
Yeah, I think, you know, I jumped into this space not even realizing that most people are not doxxed, or a lot of people are not doxxed. I'm fully doxxed. It's like kind of normal to me just because I came from a commercial artist background. I do think transparency for raising money is always really important. I think in the crypto space, it's even more important in a way, because we do have, you know, you do have to watch out for rugs, and so I think our project already had a little bit of credibility because we'd already done it. You know, the great thing about donating though is like, as far as people not being doxxed, you can track where the money goes. You know, people could see that it went through Endaoment and to Fund Texas Choice. So when we launched the 10kFU, I think that helped us a little bit, but we actually partnered with Endaoment fully. So we donated the entire 10K collection on a contract level. So we never took any money from Versament. It all goes to them, and then we're able to advise on how those funds are spent. So I think for anyone that didn't know our project, I think being able to see like, oh, well, they don't touch the money, it goes here, I can see the money here. And I mean, Endaoment's kicking ass as far as like, I see them on so many different collaborations now, helping really just the credibility of raising money. And they're amazing at getting organizations on board to actually give them the funds, because that's like the other hard part, right? Is like, we were like, how do we get people to get wallets? And it's like, they're just not going to. I mean, that's just way too early. So a partner like Endaoment, I think, is super beneficial for trying to do something like that.
I'm curious, from a standpoint of like, the collections and kind of some of the, pieces that, you not only, have a collection, you got the art up, you're set up the DAO, but, when I first jumped on there, you also have the support of a lot of other collections, a lot of other projects. I mean, all kinds of ones, many of them that we actually in our collection. So there's kind of some cool, synergy there as far as some of the projects, and I'll put a link up for the website. I'm curious, like as you were taking that lead, how did some of those partnerships with other NFT projects come to light? Do they come to you? You come to them? How did some of that conversation happen?
Oh, definitely both. I mean, we knew we were a small project when we launched the 10K, so we just reached people and said, like, hey, we need your help right now with this. And like, I think that's why we were like really proud to feature them on our men's site, because we heard no's too, So I think it's so beneficial for a project that is bigger than ours to throw a little bit of muscle behind and just be like, hey, we're not neutral in Web3. We support this. Like, this group is 100% in. Like, we're not taking money, not even paying ourselves. Like, there's no. I think I'm just in the red completely. But anyway, so that was awesome. So they shared it with their community. This last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, very quickly, like the Hub did something really inventive and amazing. And this is like, I think why it's so exciting to see how people can kind of take ideas and like help you and run with it and come up with really interesting ways. They use Prism to basically kind of group within the community, this pool, like who can donate whatever they can. People just donated whatever they had to buy as many of the top tier fuck yous as they could. And within that one community, they bought, I think it was 4 of the top tier. They raised like $5,000 or $6,000 just within their one community. And then they turned around and made it like a contest where they were gonna give it away, a raffle. So they were like posted on their Twitter and was like, hey, tag your friends that believe in this cause. And then it was a raffle within their own, like outside of their own community, I think, to bring awareness. And then also I think it's cool that they're showing that they're not neutral. So like things like that, I think are really cool, because I would have never come up with that. And I really think it would be awesome to be able to replicate it within other communities, because how cool is it just to be able to pull together whatever people have, even if it's not like 0.03, and buy the top tier ones and then use it for, or hold it in your reserves or whatever you want to do with it as a community. But
yeah, and I think that's such a great use case, right? I think, and for projects that are looking at utility, right? Like one of the utilities is using some of that community funds or some of the, like I know, one of the collections that we've been involved in, like they're taking like a couple weeks worth of all secondary sales for those second, weeks, and they're buying some cause-based projects as well. And, I think the other reminder, I think for everyone here, listening as well, is like the beauty of within NFT projects is that we have like focused audiences, usually under 10,000, that we can tap into a couple of them. Like we don't have to, reach, 400,000 people on Twitter. We could definitely just connect with 40 other projects, and those 40 projects, have those people within it, which I think is a beautiful byproduct of that as well. I'm curious, like you said, you're kind of not making any or paying yourselves off of this project. I'm a big believer in not only supporting great causes, but also making sure we support the artists and the teams that are kind of making this happen. What are some of the ways today, like some of our listeners, if they want to support and make sure that you're also, getting taken care of, do you have, what would be some of the ways that they could get involved on that side?
Well, I mean, right now, this is what we're doing. Obviously, 100% all-in model is not sustainable for, myself or any kind of team, as small as it is long term. So we definitely have plans for, you know, we have a generative collection that will come out at some point. We're working, Computer Cowgirls is kind of, I'm really interested in AR, what AR fine art will look like. How do we bring the cowgirls kind of off the screen? I think an artist, like being a little slow to realize the benefit that the NFTs are a different medium, not just a new platform. It's not like a new Instagram. It's like there's really cool things people do with technology and embracing that, because you know, otherwise I think we're kind of like early NFT days otherwise. But so I think we're looking at, like, you know, the cowgirl verse. We'll have wearables. So we have bigger plans. We just right now, I think, you know, if we weren't doing this, I don't know what we'd be doing. Just because that's like the reason I came into this space, and it's kind of now or never as far as the cause, like, you know, there's urgency. So, I mean, I think it's just a tremendous help to help people know about the project. Of course, like brand awareness, like I think that's always helpful. People don't know what we're doing, because this will always be a part of what we're doing. But yeah, I think sharing anything social sharing is always super helpful. I mean, we get in that like Twitter algorithm, it's 30 people or whatever, and being able to just break out of that a little bit is amazing. So share, tweet, like, join us on Discord, whatever.
We'll make sure all those links are in the show notes as well. You know, and I love that you have like the AR component. I saw that on your feed. You know, our designer on our team here at the podcast, when we were in New York last week for NFT NYC, he kept doing the AR overlays, you know, of our logo and some of the things that we have, which I think is really, you know, innovative ways of bringing, you know, a lot of that art to life and, you know, overlaying it. I even think of it, you know, we're just haven't really even, you know, tapped the surface of that yet. You know, for those that are, you know, are listening as well, you know, not only we have the links for the collections, but, you know, I think the other part about this that you've mentioned a couple of times is that, you know, people are willing to take a stand. And I think, you know, I've said this, I worked with IBM and the social business team for a couple of years surveying millennial Gen Z. It was what my previous life was pre-Web3. And, you know, one of the biggest things that came out of there is, I believe the number was, I have to find the exact number, but it was 73% of like those under the age of 40 at the time. So it was a couple of years ago, believed like they would support and believe in brands and projects that had a stand on something at just taking a stand, period, let alone being neutral and not understanding where they stand. And I think, you know, in this space, that is a big one. You know, for especially, you know, something important for me. I talked about that in a recent episode we had where, like, I had to learn through, you know, the murder of George Floyd that my silence was not advocacy as much as I thought it was, and that importance of kind of stepping up and making our voices heard. And so I love what you're doing. I commend your team for doing that. I really, you know, I'm also just beyond impressed on the idea that, like, you entered this space because of the ability of the cause and impact movement. There's not a lot of people that can say that. And I wish more people knew that people are coming in this space because of that, because we get, like, you know, the crypto and the monkey photos and all the stuff there. But, you know, for people like yourself that are, you know, talented artists already, and being able to come in to this space and see it as, you know, your ability to make an impact and, you know, help move a cause forward, I think is empowering, and hopefully more people can kind of share that out. So I'll kind of give you the last word. Anything you want to share, anything you want to lead people to, and then we will close it up.
Well, thank you. First of all, and I want to say that, I mean, it's a spiteful collection. I did get a lot of enjoyment about just 100% donating the money. I guess you just have to like or hate Greg Abbott enough for that to be worth it. But I will say that you don't need to buy art to donate, and a lot of the ways to help right now are really boring ways. And I think it's important to let people know, just because overwhelm is a real thing too, that making donations to orgs that work on the ground, not trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with like a whole new way, but just support the experts that are doing this, is one of the biggest ways we can help. Also, just being able to make sure that people know where to find information, like your friends and family, about, you know, abortion access, especially if you live in Texas or, you know, really at-risk state. As far as our collection, it's so helpful to just share the project. If you don't have the money to mint one, maybe talk to your community and talk about like the group buy. I think is an amazing thing. We saw so much money raised from that. And also, we're so willing for people's inventive ideas of any way that they'd like to contribute in some way. I mean, I think the cool thing about Web3 is it's really it's kind of a community effort. I mean, it's not just like our project on its own. It's like we really have had interaction with other communities that have really, really helped the project and help us raise the money.
I love it. Molly, thanks so much for joining us. For everyone listening, the premise of the podcast is pretty simple. It's built on, we are greater than me. And I think in this type of instance, like the idea of our greater we is, all of us taking action, raising your damn hand, pressing the damn button, and of course doing your own damn research. As we like, there's the 3 dams that kind of fit nicely in there. But I love the ability for us to be able to not only rally together, but activate and take action, right away. And the fact that you were already able, to take donations, get it to the states and areas that are definitely the ones that are, kind of hot button ones immediately is just another beautiful use case of what Web3 offers that we really didn't have at our disposal in Web2. So share this story out, my friends, but let's amplify, and especially those that are willing to take a stand and understand that, right now is the time that we have to rally together and really just make a choice that we are going to, make a difference, and we're not going to, sit back and wait for, others to do it for us. We're going to do that for ourselves. So I'll make sure all the links are in the bio. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Crypto Business Conference. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you in San Diego in October. I don't think anybody can complain about San Diego in October. And until tomorrow, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers.
I think.
Thank you.